Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to the NHL season for 2024. We're going to be doing a live lineup build and kind of a review and preview of what to expect for this season. Hopefully, we get some action because it is one of my favorite DFS sports to play. And I did a video going over some of that earlier, and just to remind everybody why that is. I consider this sport very similar to whatchamacallit, to what is this? Yeah, to baseball and to League of Legends, because of the presence of so much correlation in this sport. I mean, with every goal, most every goal coming in with an assist or maybe two assists, the necessity to stack is very, very big. And yet on the other hand, you're going to have some one-offs who are, really, really good plays that might not fit within that, desire for correlation. So you always are going to have to make that, it's always a very tough decision you have to make. And I do like the way SaberSim behaves in making hockey lineups as well. And I hate to do this all over again, but I do want to just, again, go through the process for building. And I'm going to do it exactly the way I do it. And it's going to be for this particular slate. Now, again, it is only a 3-game slate. And I guess the real big opening day is tomorrow. I guess that's one way to put it. It's a much bigger slate, whatever, but still, we're going to play this to the max. Now, I usually don't play 150 lineups, I have to say. And I certainly would almost never play 150 lineups on a 3-game slate anyway, but just because it's opening day and it's cheap, I figured I would do it. And again, just to kind of flex to show what SaberSim can do, I thought that was a good idea. So let me share my screen, and we're going to go through, again, exactly what we're supposed to do, I think, in NHL. So, all right, whether you have SaberSim or not, I think it's a good idea to at least take a look at the totals and see what we think should happen. Okay, like you look and you see the implied totals of Seattle, Florida, and Utah are significantly higher than the others. So I would imagine that that's where you'd get the majority of your good plays. Now, again, this is not salary adjusted or anything like that, or certainly not ownership adjusted, but that's what I'd imagine. The other thing I would like to notice is that this is not normal, but it is a very spread out slate. One at 4:30, one at 7, one at 10 o'clock. So plenty of opportunity to late swap and to figure out what's going on. Normally in hockey, you have sets of 3. You have like a bunch of 7s, like a bunch of 9s, maybe a bunch of 10:30s or whatever. So that's one thing to note. And as you guys know, it is a late swap sport, and I do like to run late swaps throughout the night. So you'd expect to see Utah, Florida, and Seattle. Let's see what we actually do see. So I'm not going to do this too often, but I'm going to share my projections, my sheets with you guys. And the key metric we're going to look at here is Sheets value score. This is my favorite way of ranking these players. And one thing that you'll notice today, and you'll see throughout the course of the season, it's not too often you get such concentration here. You usually do see some standouts, and you also see Sheets value scores usually higher. For better plays, you usually want to have them over 30. So it does seem as though a lot of guys can win here, and a lot of guys can get there, especially on a 3-game slate. The other thing you'll notice, and by the way, if you hadn't noticed yet, I mean, we have a new situation. We have a team playing in Utah now, and it's opening night, and I imagine everybody's going to be all juiced or whatever. The first thing that I will notice when I look at the projections is that you have 1, 2, 3 Utahs, let's call it 4, all from see the power play line over here, all from the power play line, all projecting well. So forgetting about ownership for a second, I think this is a very, very strong way to start. Okay. And that's what I do. I look at the projections first before I even look at SaberSim and just kind of see what a hand-built lineup could look like. And sometimes, honestly, for the bigger buy-in, I will actually go with that. So, like for example, let's just take a look and see what I could do. What you guys could do is you could start with those 4 Utah guys. So it'd be Hayton, Keller, Genther, and Sergachev. So we're going to put all those guys in just to, again, maybe we don't actually play this, but this is like something you could do. Keller, Genther, Keller, and Sergachev like that. So that's the first thing you'll notice about today's slate. Next thing I notice is the Chicago value is not as good as it was earlier in the day. Like I had Bertuzzi and another Chicago guy rated really, really strongly, Bertuzzi and somebody else, but it's not really quite as good as it was before. So it's still good value, and I could fill it in with these guys, but it's not quite as good as it was earlier. Next thing you'll notice, I mean, if you can get these guys in, is Barkov and Reinhart and Verhaeghe. Like these are all from the number 1 power play, number 1 line for Florida. Can you afford all those guys? Well, I mean, only one way to find out. I mean, let's see if you could afford all those guys. So it would be Barkov, and then who is it? Reinhart and Verhaeghe. Put those in the thing. Can you get there? So you can't quite get there playing all these guys, right? You literally can't do it. So yeah, already we have to make some choices here. Let's go back to the sheets and let's see what other values might exist here. So we have, as I mentioned, you have Bertuzzi at 4,300 is not bad. And Teravani is also not bad. What I would kind of want is a center, though. But what you could do is you could play Barkov as kind of a one-off as a center and then get to these defenders. And then you get to these other guys here. So the problem is we're running out of wing spots. But let's just say we put in Bertuzzi and, well, Seth Jones is not that cheap, but let's put in Bertuzzi, Teravanian in these spots. So let's see. Bertuzzi and then Teravanian here, and then we really have a gold mine here, because then we could put in Seth Jones, expensive guy, and then we could do whatever we want. Now we could go play, for example, Barkov, and then any goalie. So you could hand build on a day like this really, really easily. And I'm not saying we're going to actually do this, but that's, again, but that is the first thing that I do, is I look and see, it's not letting me save these for some reason. All right. In any case, let's then go into SaberSim and let's have some fun. Let's upload the projections just like this. NHL, Sim, and let's build. I mean, we're not going to need 5,000 lineups, but we're going to build 5,000 anyway. And we're just going to show you what we're supposed to do here using SaberSim. Now, the first thing you'll note is you see contests up here. What that means is that I actually uploaded my contest files from DraftKings up into here. And what that does for you is it allows you to run your contest sims really, really easily. It knows already what you're playing. So then when you want to run your sims and compare your lineups, it already has that information. You don't have to kind of tweak it. So that's a very important step, is I would definitely put your lineups into this entry editor first if you're going to use SaberSim. Look at the little logo here with the Utahs, huh? Interesting. So what I like to do before I even run the sims is take a look and see what my exposure would look like. Now, I don't care too much about the stack type on a 3-game slate, so I'm not going to be too stingy about that. Team stacks, Utah, Florida, and that makes sense because these are the ones that projected the highest. So we do have all of the sims kind of already pre-loaded. One thing I will notice, you don't have a starting goalie yet for Boston, so you have to kind of keep an eye on that. So let's just run these. And what it's doing now is it's running the 5,000 lineups against the fields, against the portfolio of lineups that Saberson believes the field is going to produce. Now, as we get deeper into analyses later on, maybe in a couple of days or whatever, we could talk about other ways to do this. Like maybe comparing, your 5,000 to your own 5,000 or something like that. But for now, let's just kind of just use the stock SaberSim field. And the one thing that you'll notice is that when you do that, the ownership kind of crowds a little bit. You don't get like to all the Utah, right? And all, you know what I mean? And I think this is all pretty healthy. Now, what's interesting is you get very, very little Seattle and Boston, but that's okay. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to adjust your min uniques by some amount. All right. You don't want to be too concentrated within your lineups. So what you have to do is just keep on giving yourself more min uniques per lineup until kind of the system gets mad at you, sort of. So what I like to do is I like to keep this stack exposure up right here. I mean, I do like to have 4 3s, 5 2s, 6s, whatever. And I want to see how changing the min uniques is going to impact this stack distribution. Okay. So if it starts to all of a sudden get kind of kooky and I get all these like random bow wow stacks, I'll probably just then stop the min uniques game. The other thing I want to keep an eye on here is this average projection of 94.58. If at any point in going min uniques more, I end up really reducing my average projection by maybe more than a point and a half, then I'll stop. But this is kind of like the art, of the science, sort of. So let's just see. Min uniques 2. Any changes? Nothing really. And got a couple of bow wow stacks in here. So let's just keep on. Let's take this one out. 3-3-2 we can live with on a small slate. What about 4-2? I think we need to probably get rid of the 4-2s. No, I think on a small slate we probably need them. But let's just see. Let's go to min uniques 3 and push the envelope a little bit. First, for average projection, it goes down a little bit. And this isn't bad. We're still in the ball game here. Let's see if we can get to min uniques 4 without it getting really crazy. So, yeah, it lost a full point when it went from min uniques 3 to min uniques 4. So let's go back to min uniques 3. And again, this is not science. This is art. I mean, we're trying to guess what's a good average projection to live with. But here's another thing you can do. And I might mess with this later in the season. I'm not going to do it today. I'll probably do it for baseball though. Is you can do a filter here where you put add new filter, and you want to limit yourself to only lineups that have positive ROIs, at least from the beginning, just to make sure that when you start going min uniques 2, 3, and 4, that you don't go too off the beaten path. So what you could do is contest sims, target contests, and then put ROI, and then just put greater than 0. So now what we're doing is making sure that all of our lineups are at least positive ROI. And it looks like we're able to do it. Okay. I think. Let's just see. Here's a good way to figure this out. Let's put all these into the puck drop, and let's see if it gives you if it yells at you for having dupes. Nope, this is good. Okay. So 150 lineups went into there. And then we want to do is go into the autofill, and that's how you get the bigger buy-in ones. So let's put these into here. And then not enough lineups to fill. Let's go back here. What do we got here? What happened to our lineups? Well, let's get rid of the rules for a moment. Okay. We don't need any min uniques for this thing. So we're going to save these to top shelf and the glove save. No, we just want to go into the top shelf in the glove save. There you go. So that's good. I just want to make sure I did that other one right. Let's go back to that 150 set. I think we did it right, but let's just do it again. So it was min uniques 3, and then we did that filter, right? So filter, which was good, and we'll put that in the opening night puck drop. And now we're in business. Okay. Download those here. Upload those here. And that could be a build that we use. Now, what I just did in the last, 17 minutes was what I consider, I don't want to say the bare minimum, but I think that that's what you should be able to do if you're going to play NHL DFS, to put yourself in the game. Okay. That's what you can do without knowing anything additional about the players, about the line changes, about any narratives that are not maybe factored into the projections in some way. What that process I just showed you did was it leveraged a couple of things. It leveraged our projections, which I think are pretty good. Okay. Second, it leveraged the SaberSim lineup builder, which I think is pretty good. Then it also leveraged the contest sims, which I think are pretty good. And then also we did a couple of changes with respect to, making sure we don't get the wrong types of stacks, which I thought was a good kind of addition to the process. And then we went min uniques as much as we could before, getting yelled at by the system, so to speak. Now, if you are someone that knows a lot about hockey, don't fret, okay? Because at the end of the day, knowing more is better than knowing less. And if you have just particular knowledge about some of these players that you think are not factored into the projections or other takes that you have, you still should implement them. But I think you should start with a quantitatively based portfolio to work from. Like if you didn't like, playing Clayton Keller or whatever it is, I wouldn't just X him out before running the builds. What I would do is run the builds first. And then if you don't like Keller, you could maybe, reduce, the amount of lineups using him. But I would not put your takes in before at least starting with a decent portfolio of lineups. Okay. Now, once you have them, then, it's only end free. You have like this set here. And now you can really do some damage. You have all this stuff, and then you could go ahead and you could change your max exposure, your minimum exposure, or whatever, and you can end up, screwing around like that. You could make rules, but as far as I'm concerned, I am not good enough at knowing the players to do that. I am pretty good with knowing settings and knowing, what type of exposures I want in general to, put myself in position to bink these things. But once, listen, we have a guy that's Goldie, Goaldy, who knows everything about NHL and NHL goalies. And once I start incorporating his takes into what I'm doing, then I think I could be dangerous. I actually could be good at this. But until then, I'm just going to kind of go with, I'm just kind of go with the quantitative approach. I guess that's pretty much all I had, with the exception of the fact that, this is a late swap sport, and I will implore you to make use of that. I would, go wait until 6:30 after this first set before running one, but I would run a late swap. And I will show you one of these days how to do that. And then at 9:30 again, I would run a late swap. And again, well, maybe today, maybe some other day, I will show you guys how to do that. But looking forward to a good hockey season. And again, there's no substantive content here. You know, I'm just doing lineup builds and sharing projections or whatever. Everything that I could have said content-wise, I promise you, is all well incorporated into the projections. And any questions that you would have for me, if they were not specific to lineup build, I would not be able to answer. I guess that's pretty much all.